Morning, welcome to the Macros in Excel workshop. Right, does everyone have a copy of the files? Awesome, right. So I'm going to get started. You can engage with me, it's fine. Okay, just right, here we go. Okay, macros in Excel, blah, 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 blah. Right, so today what we're going to be doing is a very short workshop. It's literally just an introduction. I'm going to go through some things with you. You're then going to get to play and create things using the newfound knowledge I've given to you. So let's see. First we're going to have an introduction to what macros are. Then we're going to look at how we record our keystrokes. And I'm going to put my phone on silent. There we go. Then we're going to learn how we play back the recorded keystrokes, because that's part of the macro. How we record keystrokes with relative references. I'll explain what that means when we do it. The macro editor, actually looking at the code, and then, of course, where we store the macros, how they are stored. Now, a little bit of the fine print, the small print, or the disclaimer, the terms and conditions. Because macros in Excel has only been introduced as a topic in the grade 12, I think it's grade 12, I actually don't know if we did grade 12. No one's actually done it yet. And no one actually knows what they're going to be doing with it yet. So what I'm doing is I've just kind of gone through all the basics that you would most logically teach or go through with your learners anyway. And if there's anything extra, then I'll just make another workshop or do a video or something. So it's actually, hopefully what I'm covering today will be enough for you to know that it's actually easy to teach. Could you not cough while I'm doing my... Thank you so much. I'm going to edit that out now.
Just leave it.
I'll edit this out. I was looking at like a hidden little video. Okay, just stand still, just fade and in. So, we do, what is a macro? Now they're going to wonder why I'm smiling all the time. It's for people, they pay for those videos. I can't really do it.
We pay to me as well, so.
Alright, here we go. What is a macro? Well, as I explained, if anyone was at the IB conference, it's literally just a set of instructions. It's a little mini program. That's what it is. Just is a set of instructions. It's what you record using your keystrokes or your mouse. So everything you do is recorded into a set of instructions, and that means you can then play it back. You can play those instructions back. So if you want to record yourself doing something in an Excel spreadsheet, you record it into a macro, and then when you want to replay those instructions or those actions that you recorded, it then plays it back for you. And that's what it is. And the nice thing is you can have a keyboard shortcut, okay, a keyboard shortcut which is nice and fast, or you can even attach the macro to an object or a button. An object being anything that is an object on your worksheet, like a picture or a shape. Okay, you can actually have anything clickable, and then you can run a macro. Or a button, we can use buttons to that.
If you object to that?
If you object to that, it's not an object. Okay. Right. What can we do with macros? What can you do with macros? Well, we can play back our keystrokes at the touch of a button. It saves a heck of a lot of time. If you find that you're starting to do the same thing over and over again in Excel spreadsheets, and you'd rather have a way that you can just have it do it automatically, that's what a macro will do for you. Okay. It can even, if you start learning a little bit more about macros and how they work in terms of the VBA code, you can actually perform calculations and do little programs and calculate things like if this, then do that. So it actually extends itself into the IT side of things as well. You can even have interactivity in a spreadsheet. I'll give you an example. I couldn't find the worksheets that I did, but many years ago, a few years ago, at another school I was teaching at, I created a markbook program in Excel, completely in Excel, but it was all automated with macros. So teachers just had to click buttons that I created, and it would do all the things that they wanted it to do, whether it was printing stuff or jumping to another part of the worksheet and working out something. It was all automated with macros, and they didn't have to worry about anything or breaking anything. It was perfect. Okay, so we're going to play. I'm going to show you now what we're going to do, how we're going to work with the macros. Right, so first things first, can you all open up Microsoft Excel. First things first, do you all have Microsoft Excel open on your desktop?
Yes.
Okay. Step number 1 is open Excel. Okay, that's always the first step. Best step to have is to open the right program. Number 2 is we need to have the developer toolbar. Do you know how to enable the developer toolbar? If you are not sure, you can right click in your ribbon and go to customize the ribbon. Okay, do you all have the developer toolbar on already? You do? Oh, okay, cool. If you don't, right click in the toolbar, your ribbon, select the, what did I say? Customize the, no, customize, yes. Go to customize the ribbon, go ahead and look on the right hand side, scroll all the way down till you see developer. If there's no tick there, you put the tick on, you click OK, and there is your developer toolbar. Alright, so everyone's got the developer toolbar. Please click and select your developer toolbar tab. Well, you guys, I'm going to do nice and slow, one at a time. And this is what you would do with your students as well. Alright, so you'd make sure they get on there, open up Excel, make sure the developer toolbar is there. If it's not, take them through the steps to enable it. Right, the developer toolbar, on the very left hand side, we have the code group. Now, let's begin. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our first basic macro. We're going to get it to type our name into cell A1. That's what we're going to do, okay? And this is the easiest way to create our first macro. We're going to record our keystrokes. So, first thing is, in our developer toolbar, in the code group, we go to record macro. Please click on record macro. Right, the record macro dialog box is now open, and it's asking us for a few things. Now, the first thing is a name. It's very important to give your macro a name, okay, kind of like when you have a kid, all right? It needs a name, all right? Yeah, well, okay, I'm gonna edit that out too. Then, this poor video is gonna be like, chop and change. They're gonna be like, what the heck happened? Right, back to the recording thing. Right, so you need to give your macro a name. Now, the reason we have to give it a name is if you have like 20 different macros and it's macro 1, macro 2, macro 3, macro 4, how the heck are you going to know what's what? Especially, yes, Ellery, yes, it keeps going. And how are you going to know what does what? So it's good to give the macro a name that is kind of what the macro does. So I'm going to call this write my name. That's what I'm going to call it, write my name. Okay. It's also a good habit to do the camel case as well. You know what camel case is? No spaces, okay, uppercase, etc. Yeah, okay. Right, the next thing it wants to know is a shortcut, the shortcut key. It's really handy having a shortcut key because it makes working with a macro so much faster. However, having a shortcut key, you've got to decide which key you're going to use, and I would definitely recommend using a different key for every single macro that you use. Okay, so that does make things a little bit more complicated, but you can't, I wouldn't use standard keyboard shortcuts like Control P or Control X and Control C, because those are generic keyboard shortcuts, and I don't think Excel will let you use those anyway, but I'm not going to try. I'm too scared of what will happen. Might blow up the computer or something. So we're going to go with let's go with Control L, because I don't know what else L does. Does anyone know what Control L does? No.
Lions.
What?
Lions.
Liars?
No, lions.
Lions. Okay, good. Maybe one day they'll get control. So, if we move on to the next thing, it says store this macro in.
Must it be a capital or small letter?
No, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters because obviously you're just going to go hit the actual key. So, right. Store the macro in, and for the moment, we're going to choose this workbook. So the current workbook that we are working in, we're going to store the macro so it will only be available and active in this file that we are creating. Okay. We'll look at new workbook and personal macro workbook later. Right. Another important thing, and this I'm pretty sure they will push with the students as well when they do this, is a description of the macro. In other words, what does this macro do? So it writes my name in the selected cell. that's what it does. These are all very obvious steps, but I think if you start with this from the beginning with your students, it becomes a habit, and then every macro will be perfectly recorded, okay, in terms of the metadata of the macro. Right, everybody with me so far? Good. So when I click OK, so if I click OK now, I'm now currently recording. Although we don't see any actual visual indicators, there are two things that we can see. Number one is it says stop recording at the top over there, and it also has a stop button on the bottom left as well. So I'm actually busy recording now. Obviously it's not recording like a movie or a video, it's waiting for us to provide instructions. So I'm going to click in cell A1 if it's not selected, and I'm going to type my name.
Oh, I thought you said my name. That's your name.
My name. You can type your name. Right, so I've pressed enter, it's on the next cell, and now I'm ready to stop the recording. So I press stop recording, and my macro is now done. So what we've done now is we created a new macro, we gave it a name, we gave it a shortcut key, a description, we did something, we performed some instructions or actions in Excel, and then we stopped our recording. The macro has now been recorded.
Doesn't matter. Say for example, I now went to A4 and by accident, let's say, and I typed in I, and then I clicked in A1 and I fixed it. Did it record all of what I did?
Watch what happens when you play it back now, because that's what we're going to do.
So,
Alright, so go and delete any content. Delete any, so you're back to a blank worksheet. Okay, so let's play the macro back. Okay, I'm going to use the shortcut key, Control L, and you'll notice it jumps to cell A1 and it writes my name. What does yours do the same? What did yours do?
no, so it didn't actually pick that up.
Okay.
So even if I made that mistake.
Yeah, if you delete something, you go back to it, it ends up with what you did because you deleted it. It's not going to play back you typing something and deleting it. So it's not recording like a video, it's just recording what you've ended up with. Okay. Did that work for everybody? It didn't work for somebody. It did. Yes. Awesome. Great. Did you notice that I said it types your name in the selected cell? But actually it doesn't, because it always goes to A1. Okay, or wherever you were, or back to A1. Okay. That is because we didn't use what's called relative recording. This is absolute recording. The default setup for recording a macro is absolute. So it does it where you are, and it records your cell references where you are. Right, so be careful of that, because your students might create something and go, okay, cool, it's going to do this wherever I am. And then they'll click somewhere and they'll hit Control L, and it just goes back to where they recorded it originally. So I'm going to show you how we get over that, or what we should do if we want it to be a relative macro. So let's have a look. When you record a macro, we're going to create a new one now. It's going to do the same thing. You'll notice that underneath record macro, it says use relative references. That's what you want. So switch that on. So you'll see that it's on now. It's been depressed there. Yeah, feels sad. It's been depressed. Okay, that was a bad joke. Okay, cut that out too. All right. So let's do another macro. And just click anywhere you want. Right, so I'm going to just delete that, get rid of that. Right, so I'm going to go to B3, for example. We're going to record a second macro. However, this time we're doing it using the relative references switched on. So record macro. And let's give it a name. So this one I'm going to call write my surname. That's what I'm going to call this one. Okay, this is very basic, but you'll get the idea once we do the workshop. Control, so what was my first one? Control L. So I will do Control K because that's next to it. Writes my surname in the selected cell. That's my description. Writes my surname in the selected cell. Okay, so now what we're going to do is then click OK. It has now started recording, so I'm going to write down my surname. It's going to be all uppercase as well. Press enter and stop recording. Let's test it. Control K. Go somewhere else, Control K. Go somewhere else, Control K. Try Control L again, jumps back to A1, but Control K will be wherever you are, it will run that macro relatively to where you are. Right, let me just clear everything, clear it over there. Right, so we've created our macro. We've also then tested it by using the shortcut key. And now I want to show you just a couple of examples. Okay, I've actually given you the examples, but I'm going to show you first on the screen, and then you can look at the example. I've given it to you in that folder that you guys copied. Okay, so let me just open it up. Where are my examples? Here they are here. Sample files, macro number 1. I'm just opening that quickly, and I'm just opening up one at a time. Right, enable. So here is a macro which I created, which is also relative. And what it does is it adds up the 2 cells to the left of the selected cell. So for example, I'm in cell C3 now, and if I press Control K, it automatically adds up the 2 cells on the left hand side. If I do that again. Okay, so how did I create that? It was what we did now with our first macro of recording our names. I went to my first cell there, I created my macro, I selected these 2 and I added them to each other. That's it. And that's what I did, and that's the macro done. So now I can play that back anytime. So even if I was here and I press Control K, you see there's no, obviously it's trying to add up those 2, there's nothing there. You see, so if you look at the code, now this is where more learning is going to take place. And we're going to get onto that in about 10 minutes, okay? You'll see here, here's the name of the macro. It's called add them up. There's the description of what it does. There's the keyboard shortcuts. And here are the actual instructions that Excel receives and works on. Okay, so if you knew this code, you could literally type this macro out, and it would be the same as if you were recording it with your mouse button and your keyboard. So here you can see it says, right, the second one says active cell, blah, 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 take this, add that. Okay, so to us, right away, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just code, and it doesn't have to make much sense. Okay, so don't stress about that. It's just showing you what it does. Let me close this one. I'll show you the next one. Let's go to number 2. All right. You'll notice this is another thing actually. There's often a security warning. This is a default setting in Microsoft Office. You have to enable the content for the macros to work. It disables the macros because if you think about it, it's running code on your computer. So it can do stuff, right? So it is a security risk. So please make sure that you enable the content. Now here we have another macro that I created, which takes the cells that I've selected. It puts a border around each cell, and it then gives it a fill color or a shade. So I'm going to select these numbers over there, Control K, and there it is there. You can see it's now given them a color. I'll zoom in a bit there, and it's given a border to them as well. Again, this is very, very basic, but you can see where we're going. We will be able to start using this for quite powerful applications. Okay, again, there's the code, and it looks ridiculous. Now, we won't have to do this. We will not have to do this. I can promise you that. Okay, it's just VBA, Visual Basic something. I don't know what the A stands for. Anybody? Visual Basic Application, it probably is that. Right, I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to open up another one. Did I do number 3 already? I can't remember.
No.
Okay, here we go. Oh, this is my favorite one. This is the Fibonacci sequence. So it takes 2 numbers, adds them together, then takes the previous 2 numbers, adds them together, then the next number adds. So it keeps adding the previous number to the new number, and it generates a sequence called the Fibonacci sequence. And if you actually calculate that in maths teachers love this. It does like this hectic shell spiral design. So it's pretty cool. So here I go to my first cell in cell A7, and I use Control K, how original, and I go there. So 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, and so on and so forth. and this starts generating a sequence. Every time I press Control K, it generates a sequence of numbers in the Fibonacci sequence. And it's all done using this little bit of code. That's it. And that was a macro that I recorded. So up until now, we've learned how to record a macro by actually doing the instructions first. We actually do what we needed to do first ourselves, and then we can play that back anytime. That is the first and easiest way of doing macros in Excel. Get your students to record what they are doing. Get them to practice first. Make sure that they know what they're doing. Otherwise, it gets very messy, and then they're clicking here, and then they, oh, oops, and then they got to click there, and oops, and get them to first practice. Get the instructions nice and clean. Then they do it while they're recording, and then their macro is ready. Right, that's number 3. Number 4 is coming. There it is. Right, here's another one. And again, what this macro does now, it calculates the average of a range of numbers, okay, these numbers over there, and it also applies conditional formatting automatically. Now, how did I do this? Well, I just did it the way you would normally do it, just manually. I did a calculation working on the average. I applied conditional formatting like you would normally apply conditional formatting, but I just recorded it. That's the only difference. I just recorded what I did. So now I can play that back. And so when I press, guess what? Control K. There's that one, there's that one, there's that one. And if they're random numbers, so hopefully somebody fails soon. Are we going to fail? Ah, finally, thank you, someone failed. Said no teacher ever. Okay, so there you can see I've got the average automatically calculated and conditional formatting applied. If somebody gets below 50%, they have failed. All right, that's my class. They got to get 50%, like minimum. Yeah. And so that's really, really handy. So you don't have to, every time you create a workbook, go and do this yourself. You can just do it once and then run the macro whenever you need it. Is that making sense so far, teachers? Are we happy so far? Can you open up a blank worksheet? We're going to do something very exciting. It's my favorite part. What we're going to do now is we're going to record a macro. We're going to just do some random things. I'm then going to show you where the macro is stored and how we look at the code of that macro. So you kind of get an idea of where everything is, because sometimes you might get an issue and you need to actually go look at the code of the macro. And this will help you understand what to do next. So for example, I'm going to hit record macro. I'm going to call this random functions. Or actually, I'm going to call it randomize. Randomize. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to generate a random number in a cell. Okay? And I'm going to use Control R for the word random.
So that all your shortcuts somewhere eventually get saved into a database.
Right, that's this part here. Okay.
Is that
When we save a macro or a shortcut key, the default is this workbook, which is fine. And that's what you would normally do, because it's just really relative to the workbook you're working with. There is another workbook here called Personal Macro Workbook. Now, you're not going to do that now, because if you're working on one of my laptops, okay, because it's going to save it on the actual computer, then that doesn't help you. You've got Personal Macro Workbook. What that is, on your computer, there is a special folder deep down somewhere where Microsoft Excel can store specific information. And the Personal Macro Workbook is one of those locations, which means that the macros that you record and store in your Personal Macro Workbook are accessible and available to any workbook that you open, not just the workbook you're working in now. So if you create this function called Control R randomize, and you create it and you save it, any workbook or even a brand new worksheet that I open, when I run Control R, it will run that function for me. And that's nice. So that's a system-wide setting. So you can then run that macro no matter what Excel workbook you have open, as long as it's been saved as an Excel macro worksheet.
But is there going to be a place where you can go and see what all the shortcuts are that you've already used?
You can open your personal workbook file. You can actually access it, and then you can see everything inside there.
So it'll
Okay.
show us that.
I'll show you where the macros are stored and what they look like, and then you can see. Okay, that's in the Visual Basic editor. Okay, that's after this step. Right, so let's record this. I'm not going to record in the macro thing. I'm going to do it in this one. Randomize Control R, and we'll just say generates a random number. So now we're going to use a function. It's going to actually record a function that we are creating together. Generates a random number. Click OK. So in cell A1, now remember my use relative references is on. I recommend leaving it on. Alright, that means there's less hassle with your students when they keep doing something and it goes back to the original cell. Alright, here we go. So in my toolbar there, or function toolbar equals rand between, I'll just do it between 100 and 1000. Enter, done. I now have a random number. And stop recording. Done. Now we're going to do two cool things, guys. Are you ready? I'm going to take that as a yes. So, has everyone recorded their macro? Have you all recorded your macro? Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to, in your code group, okay, is everyone still following me? I don't want to leave anyone behind. The ladies there at the back, you still following me? Awesome. Just shout if you need anything, please. Here we go. Over here, you'll see that there's a button that says macros. Click on that button that says macros.
Should we be in any specific cell or the one that...
No, anyway, we just,
We're
this,
still recording though.
no, we've created our macro, the randomized one.
Stop recording.
Yeah, okay. Good. Now, what we are looking at now are the macros that have been recorded in this document. And at the moment, I've got three of them. I've got the write my name, that was the first one we did. I've got the write my surname, that was the second one. And there's the one I just recorded now. I have a few options here. Have a look. I've got a run option. I can actually run the macro from here. So if I click run, it generates a random number in the cell that I was currently in. If I go back to macros, I'll move that out the way there. I have a couple more options, okay? I've got at the bottom a button that says options. If I click on that, that just shows me the keyboard shortcuts. And we had a situation earlier, a teacher, they were trying to run the macro and it wasn't running with a shortcut. They had actually pressed Control Shift and a letter. So that showed them there that it pressed Control Shift and a letter. So that's also a nice way of checking if the shortcut key is not working, all right? Then we have the delete option if you don't want the macro anymore. And then we have the edit option. Now I want you to choose the randomize function that we just, or the randomized macro we just created, and click edit. Out of memory. Oh, there we go. Right. Did your window open the same as mine?
Yes.
Right. We are now inside the module of this worksheet. This is now what we're looking at, the VBA, the Visual Basic Application Editor of this workbook. This is the code that actually gets created. And have a look here. Here is my first macro that I recorded. This is all code. So sub, don't worry about the word sub. There's the name of the macro. There's some information. There are the actual instructions. There's my next one. Here's randomize. Have a look at how it did randomize. And by analyzing the code, when you do very basic instructions, you can actually start learning a little bit of VBA just by seeing what the commands are. So for example, active cell, well, that's the cell you're in, the active cell. Formula, row 1, column 1, so it hasn't moved anywhere. Equals, and then there's the function that I typed in. Active cell, offset, in other words, I pressed enter to offset the cell selection by 1. Do you see? So that's how we learn this. Now take a look on the left-hand side. You'll notice on the left hand, ignore all of these ones at the bottom, okay? This is the cell I'm working in now. Sorry, the workbook. It's called Module 1. This is where, and we're talking about the storage of macros, this is where they are stored. Okay, this is where they're stored. And the personal macro workbook, Alri, you asked about that? It will be available there as well. And you can access it through there. Okay, so this is where you start. Now we're actually going to work with that in a second. I'm going to show you. So I want to show you your next macro. Oh, actually don't close that. I wanted to show you one more thing. There we go. This is the best part about macros. Instead of using keyboard shortcuts, we can also attach them to objects and buttons. And it's the easiest thing to do. I'm still in my developer toolbar, okay? And here I have my controls group. I'm going to click over here where it says insert. I'm assuming yours looks the same as mine. Insert, and you'll notice my first form control is actually a button. Okay, so I'm going to click, and my cursor is now changed because I can now drag and create a button. So I'm going to release the button, and this is the best part. Did yours do the same? The moment you create a control button, Excel's asking you, well, what do you want this button to do? And you know what? I want to run the randomize macro that I created. That's what I wanted to do. So I click OK. And I'm just going to give it a name. So I'm just going to click just in the text over there. And I'm just going to edit that. Instead of saying button 1, I'm going to say generate random number. And I'm going to also resize the cell. Now, here's a little trick though. You will find that if you try and click on the button to edit it, it's going to run the macro, okay? Which is not going to help you. If you want to edit the cell, like in terms of the text, just control click so you can select it. The control button and click with your mouse, and then you can click and do something. Right, so watch this. I'm going to go to cell A1, generate random number, done. Generate random number, done. Are your buttons working?
So you're going to have to create the macros before attaching the button to it, right?
You don't have to. This, I'll show you. There's another. Yes, yes. Is it working?
Yes. My first one was the second one was giving me a runtime.
The one thing I'm noticing is some of you are forgetting, when you record a macro, okay, remember the moment you hit record, every action you perform with a mouse or a keyboard is recorded as an instruction. So you might hit record and then you notice, oh, I'm not where I should be. So you start using your arrow keys to move your selection around, and then you're like, oh, I must just quickly delete that. Okay, good. Now I'm going to type my thing. It's recording all of that. So when you play that macro back, it's doing all of that again. And if you have a cell going into another cell, you know, like when you have circular referencing, things like that, you get timeouts, errors, etc. So please make sure when you do this and when you teach your students to do this, that you are ready to record the macro right away. You are where you need to be and you know what you're going to do. Always know what you're going to do. Don't start doing something and then you're like, oh no, and then you delete and you go somewhere else, because then it becomes messy. Then you got to go into the code and fix the code, and it's just a nightmare. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Now watch this. Another question was, okay, do I have to create the button like after I've done the macro and stuff? You don't have to actually. Okay, this is another cool thing you can do. Watch this. So I'm going to actually just get rid of this, get rid of all of this. Okay, so I've created a macro. I've called it randomize. I have a shortcut key, Control R, but I actually want a button to do this. All right, so let's say I already had a button. So let's go here, insert, there, and I didn't do that, and I just had a button. So I'm clicking, but you know, you can see there's nothing happening. All right, so I right-click my button, and I go to Assign Macro. And any object, if it's a picture, a shape, or a button, an actual object, you can right-click and you will have an Assign Macro option. Assign Macro, choose the macro you want, and click OK. So now watch. Click, click, and there we go. For example, instead of the button, I'll do it with a shape. I'll do it with a shape. So I'll go to insert, shapes, pictures, shapes, there we go. Oh, icons are cool. So I'll do that one there. Here we have a shape. Click me to, I can't, I have to fix that. Click me to generate a random number. Okay, let's just do that. Oh, come on, how's that? All right, so I have a shape now. Now, obviously, I created my shape. It didn't pop up a thing saying, do you want to assign a macro? So no, we just right-click, assign macro. So if you've created a button beforehand, even if you had no macros that existed and you had a button object, then you could still later on right click the button and then assign it to a macro. You don't have to create the macro first. Was that sort of your question? That is assigning a macro to a button. And remember, with a button, don't forget, if you want to edit the button at all, control click. Okay, you can right click as well, same thing, and then just, okay, it's the same thing, but control click is just quick and easy, and you can then edit your button and play with it, and change the colors or whatever. So you can actually make it look pretty good. Which brings me on to the next example that I'd love to show you guys. I'm going to just close, here we go. This is what your students will actually have a lot of fun with. They're actually going to have a lot of fun with this one. All right, watch this. So click here for a message. Click, and up pops an actual dialog box with a message inside. That's a macro. How cool is that? Click the shape for a message just to show it could also be a shape. Same thing. Okay. And how's this? In cell A5, I wrote the word pineapple just because it's the first word that came to mind. I can have a macro which looks at cell A5 and then tells me what word is inside that cell.
Okay.
And this is what you're going to be doing today. So whatever I type in there. Okay. That's the first word that came to mind now. Didn't I write that? I don't have my glasses, so I can't see. Okay. Now, let's have a look at the code. This is the code. Here's some basic VBA code. And I'm going to teach you how to do this now. That is how you create a message box. It's just that. It's 3 little lines. In fact, it's only 1 line. You'll only do that. And I'll show you. Watch. From scratch, using pure code, no recording of keystrokes this time. Right, so this would probably be the next level of macros, I think. The first level was recording our keystrokes. So we do the work first, it records it, and then we just play it back. But you still have to do the work first. Here is another cool thing you can do. So go to Developer, go to Macros, give the macro a name. So let's call it Greeting. And you see there's a lovely button there that says Create. Click on Create. Right, now we are programmers. All right, and here we go. So what are we going to create? You can see that it's already done the first and last line of the program, the opening and ending of it. All we do is we're going to type in MSGBOX, message box, and then your parentheses, open and close. And I think we use quotes, quotation marks. Hello there. Okay, this would be the higher grade stuff, high level, high order level thing. Yeah, that one. Okay, here we go. So we have now created a little program which will pop up a little message box with a greeting. And you'll see here it is saved in module 1. So if you're looking for your macros inside your workbook and you're inside this VBA editor, look on the left hand side in the modules folder. Okay, this is all stored within this, but it's all in the back, so we won't see it when we're working. Okay, so close that over there. Right, so let's create a button. Insert. There's my button, my form control there. And let's choose the greeting. Click OK. Click it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, go back to your code and see what's missing.
Matt, what was before hello there? I couldn't read on the board. What did it say?
I'll show you now. I've got a picture and I'm going to zoom in for you. There you go. I didn't even use parentheses. Didn't even have to. Right. How's that? Did it work? Keyboard shortcut. While I'm here. In fact, do you all have the Say Something worksheet open? Can you open that up for me, please? The one that I gave you? It's called Say Something. The quick way to get to your Excel, your macro Excel VBA editor, Alt and the F11 key. Just in case you need to get there quickly and you remember your keyboard shortcut, Alt, F11. Okay. I'd like you to have a look at the next one. The first one was saying hello. and it looked like that. It was just message box, and we told it what to say. However, what if you would like the message box to say or give information as to what is in a particular cell? Okay, like the word pineapple that I did, pineapple, and I clicked and it said pineapple. Here it is here. Okay, it's the same thing, but I told it in cell A5, so I said, message box, and instead of typing the words pineapple, all I typed was range and then A5. Range is where, okay, and A5 is the location. However, A5 is in quotes because it's a text that's going to be using text. So give that a try. Try it with a different one. Try a different cell. Well done, everyone. It's actually looking great. How are we doing so far? Okay, does anybody need a break? Because there isn't one. Okay, good. Here we go. Now I'm going to show you the last one, and then I'm going to give you guys some work to do. All right. So the last one is called messages, and I'm going to show you in terms of using text what you could actually use this for. I know a lot of us do like feedback, and maybe it's in spreadsheets, or maybe you need to write comments or things like that. Have a look here. What I've done is I've created buttons that give me messages that are already typed out for me. So I don't have to keep typing out comments the whole time. So watch this. I'm going to go to cell A1, and if they've done really well, it's an excellent. So I just click the excellent button and it says, this is excellent work. Very good, well done. Very good effort. Try, oh, thank you. Good try, but you can do better. This is just a good, sorry. Okay, so I don't really say that to my kids, but anyway. But do you notice that all of these buttons, do you see how much quicker it is because I've created a macro to record messages, and now I can just click any message I want and it will just do it automatically.
And Matt, how do you bring that to the marking that you do?
Well, I'm thinking of using this because I do a lot of, when I do a practical, and I put the mark sheets in Excel, so it does all the adding automatically. So I can do it like that. I can just have buttons that are already there. Now watch this. This is my favorite thing, guys, because what I'm going to do next is, you know this little quick access bar that you've got? Okay, watch this. At the top there, you can add a couple of things. Now I'm just going to go to more commands, and over here it says choose commands from, and I'm going to go choose macros, and I'm going to put excellent and no good. And now, okay, you can choose icons and all kinds of stuff there, but you can actually put your macros up there as well. So you don't even need the buttons if you don't want buttons. I can just go here and go, oh, you know what, that's good. Oh, no, that's bad. That's good, that's bad. In your quick access ribbon. That's pretty handy.
Can you do that again slowly?
Okay, so I'm going to do it again slowly. In my quick access ribbon, I go and I choose my little more button there. I go down to more commands. I then choose, it says here, choose commands from, and I'm going to choose macros. And there are the macros that I have. And I can just add them to the bar. And again, now, if you want, obviously, if they all look the same, it's going to be difficult to know. So what you can do is, if you click like the excellent, and I go, okay, cool, let's just modify that. And I can choose a little picture. So, you know, maybe, I don't actually know what to choose. Oh, there's a good tick there. So there's a tick, and then the no good, maybe I'll just modify that, and I'll make that, I saw a cross. There's a cross, a tick and a cross. So watch this. Tick it across. So I go there. Oh, that was actually good. That was good. That was good. That was not good. Very nice, isn't it? Good. I'm glad you like that one, guys. Now it's time for you to do some work. And what I've done is I have created some suggestions. I have created some suggestions for you, and this is what they are. And I want you to pick as many as you like, and I want you to try and do these now. We've got another 15 minutes to go. Plenty of time. And I'll just zoom in a little bit there. So pick one that you like, and I want you to create a macro that can do one of those things. Okay, or as many macros as you like, but those are the different things I'd like you to try and play with and see how you go. First of all, what I have also made available to you are notes. If you forget everything the moment you walk out this door, which is not good, but what I've done is I've also taken all the things that we've done and a few extras, and I've created PDF documents from online tutorials that I found, which are actually very, very useful. The sites that I've used for most of this are extremely valuable. I mean, they teach you everything, and anything you don't know, just Google it. It really is so easy. So I've given you a whole bunch of information here as reference material. And I just want to finish with the steps that one would follow or should follow, that I think, when you are teaching this to your students. Here is the 12 steps list. Okay? That's actually 10. I've added in the extra 2, but you'll see. So step number 1, open Excel. That's the easiest part. Step number 2, make sure that everyone has the developer toolbar. Step number 3, you teach them how to record a macro by clicking on the record button. The next step, give the macro a name. Remember to tell them no spaces. Give it a name that is intuitive, it's useful. It's a name that makes sense so that they know color in cell is a macro that colors in a cell. For example, step number 5, assign a keyboard shortcut, preferably one that isn't being used by the standard Windows computer. Another thing you can do is, it's not just Control and a shortcut, you can also do Control Shift and a shortcut. Okay, Control Shift. I would probably recommend the Control Shift thing because then you won't have the hassle of override or clashing with default shortcuts. Step number 6, make sure that they're storing it in the right location. The best space, I think, to start with is the immediate workbook. So when they open up that workbook, the macro is inside that workbook only. Right, don't teach them about the personal workbook where it says all the macros. That probably will come in. I'm pretty sure it'll come in as well, but we'll tackle that when we get to it. Right, then step number 7, make sure that they type a reasonable, accurate description of the macro.
In Greek.
In Greek, special Greek. Step number 8, execute the actions. And I think you've learned from this that whatever you do, Excel will not forgive you. It will record every single action. Okay? Step number 9, stop recording. Then test the macro with the keyboard shortcut. Test it. Make sure that it works. Because then you'll see if something is wrong. And then you can try and go back and fix it. The next 2 are optional ones or later ones. You can then assign the macro to a button or an object. And then you can also then look at the code if you want to. Okay. So guys, in a nutshell, that is Excel and macros. I hope that is useful to you. Thank you.